Hello there, World of Tankers, and welcome to the auctions! I'm your host, STG Blitz, and in today's video, we will be breaking into the next set of auction vehicles released for this week in Blitz. There's quite a few good deals here, which I'll be breaking into, and there's quite a few tanks I wouldn't suggest to buy. In today's video, I'll be breaking into everything you need to know, so let's get straight into it! Starting off, we have the WZ-112-2. This is the Tier 8 Soviet-style Chinese premium heavy tank. It's actually a really solid vehicle. I mean, the gun is Soviet. It's a .389 dispersion with almost 6 seconds of aiming time gun. It features 400 alpha, which the only real good thing about the gun is the alpha and the penetration. Apart from that, yeah, mediocre DPM and wholly bad dispersion. Yesterday, somebody asked me to play this tank on live stream, and we did fine. It was about 2,200 damage, which is okay. But wow, the first like 3 shells I fired just completely missed against my will. There's nothing I could do against it. So the gun is very mediocre. But what makes up for that is, first of all, the mobility. The tank features a top speed of 42 and the best reverse speed out of all the Soviet and Chinese premiums of 20. So that's actually crazy good. Having that reverse speed allows this tank to just get in and out of situations a lot easier, especially with obviously Clipper meta right now. Add that into the fact the vehicle also features actually very solid armor. We can take a look at the armor here, and yeah, this is the upper plate, 240 millimeters on flat ground. The turret is also incredibly thick with basically no hatches, as we can see. It's not like the IS-5 where you've got those big bonglers on the roof. You don't actually have to worry about that with the 112-2. So if you're in a T-32, and let's say you load that 278 millimeters of APCR pen running Cali, this is what the upper plate of the vehicle is going to look like. Sure, on flat, it's pretty easy to pen. But if you're a smart 112-2 player, you'll angle it slightly, and then you can actually see the vehicle's armor becomes quite strong, upwards of 280 millimeters on the upper plate, making it nearly impervious for even a T-32's APCR on flat. And if you're using gun depression, yeah, good luck. You're never going to pen this thing a hull down as long as you hide that lower plate. It's upwards of 328 millimeters on the upper plate, and the turret cheeks as well are very strong, as you can see. There are weak spots, like the little spots next to the gun are penetrable, but for the most part, if you miss those spots, I mean, this thing is very strong. So the 112-2 overall is actually a very good vehicle on armor, and because of that, it makes it a super enjoyable tank to drive. I would be willing to say that the 5,500 gold price tag that this vehicle is going to go down to on day 3 is actually a really good deal. So keep your eyes open for that tank. It's actually really cheap as it is. So it's a fun vehicle. It will definitely get the job done. So if you're looking for a strong and just have a strong Soviet style heavy that'll get the job done a lot of the games, that's a vehicle to go for. Next up, we have the IS-2SH, which is 5,500 gold currently. That's 1,500 gold cheaper than the 112-2, and it's going down 500 gold a day, which means it's going to be, what, 4,000 gold by the final day? The problem with the tank is that it's just a bad vehicle. I mean, compare the armor of the 112-2 we're currently looking at to now going over to the Soviet heavies, and that's not Soviet, this is Soviet, and we go pull up the IS-2SH. Look at this thing's armor. I mean, what? Even with standard ammo, the vehicle's lower plate is dookie. And the turret as well, I mean, yeah, it's got some troll spots, it's got some red, but it's just bad. I mean, you just shoot the turret cheeks every time and you penetrate this vehicle. Add that into the fact the vehicle's upper plate is only 250. You also can't angle. I mean, look at this. I mean, it's just bad armor. Even using these 7 degrees of gun depression, the vehicle's upper turret is still pretty poor. It's just not a good tank. That's the problem I have with the IS-2. I mean, it does feature a slightly better gun on accuracy than the rest of the Soviet heavies, but the vehicle just needs an armor buff. If Wargaming were to buff the upper plate and the side armor, it would be much better. The problem is, even when side scraping the tank to make the side armor red when poking, this little corner here is a pen, which means that when you back up, the people just shoot you here. The track wheels are terrible. Yeah, the IS-2 I would not recommend it to buy. It is a vehicle that I personally do not enjoy that much to drive, and even for 4,000 gold, it's really just not a good vehicle. Don't get fooled by the tank. You're probably never going to drive it once you pick it up. You're going to be like, wow, this tank kind of sucks, especially with the newer and better heavies added into the game. So that's my suggestion on the IS-2. Now we arrive to the French medium, the FCM 50-ton, a vehicle that I would literally never recommend even to my greatest enemies. Not necessarily because the tank is bad, but once again it has the IS-2SH syndrome, where it's just not good. Why would you ever want an FCM 50-ton? The vehicle is very, very mediocre on paper. Its mobility is, first of all, not very good, only reaching a top speed of 51. I mean, sure, it's got a great power to weight, but it doesn't matter when you only get up to 50. The vehicle's gun is very solid. It's got .317 dispersion, 3.5 seconds of aiming time, and it's pretty good DPM, especially if you put on gunner armor. The vehicle's got 2,467 DPM, but why would I ever drive this tank when the CDC just exists? The CDC is faster, going 60. It's got a much, much better power to weight. The vehicle's got better aiming time, better dispersion with the same DPM and same penetration, and the vehicle's like half the size. And that's literally, I mean, look at the size of the FCM. The thing is massive. And sure, its upper plate and turret can't be HE'd, but it still doesn't really have armor. The turret is only about 170 thick, which means the majority of standard rounds will still cut right through it, and the hull is only about 120, and you can see it is not very well angled. It's just not a good vehicle, and for 4,500 gold, I mean, it's a cheap price tag, and it's going to go down to 3,000, but personally, I would just suggest to stay away from it. It's not a vehicle you'll ever care about sitting in your garage. There's nothing fun about it. It's just a French medium that is worse than other French mediums. So that's my view of the FCM. Next up, we have the STG Guard, a vehicle that I actually love. It's one of my favorite tier 8s in the game, and it's because of the gun and the profile going for it. A lot of people don't realize this, but the STG Guard does actually feature pretty solid armor. If we go over to mediums and we go over to the STG, the turret on the vehicle, I mean, this is up against T32 APCR, which has 278 mils of pen. I mean, yeah, these are just the turret cheeks on the tank, and that is very strong. 270 mils? Look at what it looks like aiming standard at this vehicle's turret. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. Sure, it does have a massive hatch, but the times I get actually hit in that hatch are very small because of the fact that it's angled on the vehicle's turret, so you can just move it back and forth, and it makes it very hard to hit the hatch. Plus, the vehicle is incredibly mobile, so you just go backwards and forwards and turn the vehicle sideways like this, only showing your turret, and it makes it super tricky to hit that hatch. I love the STG because of this. The vehicle's super, super low down. In fact, it's one of the smallest tier 8s in the game for mediums when it comes to the profile. So it's a really fun tank to drive because of that. Now, if you do show the hull, you're going to be penned every time. Its lower and upper plate are dookie on armor. The side armor is only 47 thick, and the rear is also very weak at only 49 to 30. So, yeah, you want to only use the turret on the STG. If you use the hull, you're going to fall apart incredibly fast. But that's what makes it so interesting, is the fact that the armor is actually quite solid on the vehicle, but only in certain play styles. If we take a look at the vehicle's gun, it's also really fun. I mean, penetration-wise, it's a bit lackluster. It's only 236 mils of APCR, but to be fair, that's plenty, especially it is APCR. You will cut through the majority of tier 8 heavies and mediums with that amount of penetration. The vehicle's dispersion at .362 is actually very solid for the only 2.3 seconds of aiming time the vehicle features. This is very similar to the Chinese medium playstyle, where you aim in instantly, slap that shell, and back on the cover. It's super fun because of that. And add that into the fact the vehicle is very mobile, reaching a top speed of 50 with a solid power to weight, and this vehicle features the best camouflage for a medium in tier 8. It's actually just really fun. It's one of my favorite tier 8s, and I actually do very well in it, as you can see. 83% win rate with 2,500 average damage. There's a lot of people out there that feel like this tank just isn't good, and I've never really understood that. Personally, I have some of the best stats in the servers when it comes to this vehicle, and that is because of the playstyle it features. It's just such a fun tank. So I would actually be willing to say that the STG Guard, and the cheapest price tag it's going to be going down to at 5,000 gold, is a very worthy deal. It's a fun tank. It's got a great gun, and if you like alpha plus mobility, it's definitely a vehicle I would highly recommend to get your hands on. So, not a bad vehicle at all. Next up, we have the Lorraine 40-ton, which I'm very surprised almost 100 of have sold already. Like, really? I'm surprised people want the Lorraine. I mean, sure, it's an autoloader, and autoloaders are very strong, but the Lorraine is not to be fooled with the TVP. We can make our way over to French mediums, and we can take a look at the Lorraine gun. And it's strong, don't get me wrong. I mean, the vehicle's got decent DPM at 2,000, very good dispersion at 0.310. The aiming time's pretty poor, though, at 4 seconds. The shell reload time of each shot on the intraclip is 2.5 seconds, and that means it's going to take you 7.5 seconds to deal your total clip, which is what? Like 1,000 damage? It's 225, so yeah, it should be about 1,000 damage in total. The problem with the vehicle is that it just takes so long to deal that damage. Again, it's 7.5 seconds to deal 1,000 damage in the Lorraine 40-ton, when I could just drive a Barasque, which is sold quite commonly, and deal, what, 640 damage in 2 seconds? Yeah, I mean, this tank wins on that trade. And not only that, but even a vehicle like the Rev, which is a 350 Alpha vehicle, it takes 9 seconds to shoot. And at that point, if you just plop adrenaline, you will take about the same time to shoot 2 shells in this vehicle as a Lorraine 40-ton will take to dump its entire clip. That means you will deal 700 damage to a Lorraine, as the tank only deals 1,000 back to you if it hits every single shell. I mean, to me, I just don't really love the Lorraine. It's not a bad tank, and I've done well in it. I've got about 2,200 average and 70% win rate, which is okay for this being one of the older vehicles I had when I wasn't the greatest at the game. But it's just not great, especially when, if we make our way over to the European nation, not only Progetto exists, but this exists, the Skoda T27. This vehicle, in a matter of 3 seconds, can dump out 3 shells with 220 damage. It's just a flat better Lorraine. Sure, it has 1 less shell, but it's got the same DPM, and the vehicle itself is just flat better. So that's what I would just suggest. If you're ever wanting to get a vehicle like a Lorraine, either get your hands on the Skoda T27, a Barasque, or a Progetto, which also has a very quick intraclip of only 2.5 seconds, and again, 3 shells at 240 Alpha. So that's my viewpoint on the Lorraine. The Lorraine is not a great vehicle. It's not bad, but it's definitely nothing incredible. Also, the price tag really isn't dropping much, only going down 250 gold a day, meaning that by day 3 it's only going to be 4,250. So yeah, it's just not a great deal. Next up, we do have a very solid deal, the K91. The vehicle at lowest is going to go down to 7,000 gold. I would expect the K91 to sell out before that, but at the same time, so many people already have the tank, it wouldn't surprise me if it did make it to day 3. The K91 is an absolute steal. 7,000 gold is incredibly cheap. Sorry about that, my phone alarm just went off because I forgot to turn it off as I woke up a little bit before it. The K91 is definitely a steal. Even at 10,000 gold, it's not that bad of a deal. I would highly recommend, when it goes down to 9,000 or even 8,000, to keep your eyes on the numbers, and if you don't own the tank, I would recommend to pick it up. The main reason is because, first of all, the vehicle's got an incredible gun. 2,700 damage per minute for a heavy. The vehicle like the Conqueror is a single shot, which you would expect to have more DPM. Nope, only 2,500. The Object 752, nope, less DPM. This vehicle features literally some of the highest DPM for Tier 9 heavies in the game. Add that into the fact it's accurate at 0.326 dispersion, its aiming time is pretty solid, it's got great pen at 340 on the premium, and the vehicle is an autoloader with a 3.53 second intraclip with 350 Alpha, dealing 1,050 potential damage in total. The vehicle itself is just insane. It's got great mobility, 40 kilometers per hour is a top speed, 15 in reverse, so nothing a problem there. And armor-wise is also very solid. If we make our way over to Armor Inspector, we go to Tier 9 and we go to Soviet Heavies, we can see the K91. And let's get, how about an M103 up against it? This vehicle's got very good pen. We can see that, yeah, its upper and lower plate are pretty weak. It's like 240 and 150. But using gun depression, we can see that the armor is pretty solid on the turret. Even with heat, like, sure, it's pretty easy to pen, but the majority of vehicles don't have 374 heat, and people that fire standard ammo are going to struggle to pen the vehicle's turret. It looks like it's got penetrable weak spots, but they're very troll to hit, and they will get bounces everywhere. It also has a shot trap of a track wheel. The vehicle here, this little spot, you don't expect to bounce shells, so when you shoot at the track wheel, sometimes you'll hit this little angle bit, and you'll actually bounce right off. Trust me, it happens more than you think it will. The side armor is also very, very good at side scraping with, so overall, the K91, not the best armor, but it's definitely good enough to get the job done. And when you add that into the fact it's got an incredible gun, very good mobility, and decent armor, yeah, it's it's a great tank. I would highly recommend to keep your eyes out on that vehicle. Finishing off, we have the Super Conqueror. Now, next update, the Super Conqueror is getting changed a pretty decent bit. The vehicle is losing its Hesh, and it's getting premium AP. It's also gaining a bit of damage per minute. I would say maybe like 150 DPM. So it's actually getting substantially buffed in my opinion. Like, sure, it's losing the Hesh, but the increase of its DPM is definitely an advantage because you're not going to need the Hesh if you just have a flat DPM increase. The Super Conqueror is already a very solid vehicle. It's got a great gun, which features 2,650 DPM, and that's, by the way, with calibrated shells. Next update, if it has AP Premium, you're easily going to be able to run Gun Rammer, which I will. So it's going to have upwards of like around 3,000 DPM, which will be incredible. Add that into the fact that it's quite accurate, especially if you're doing a refined gun at 0.318 dispersion. The vehicle's got good mobility, reaching a top speed of 36 and a reverse of 16, a good power to weight, and very solid armor. If we make our way over to the armor profile of this tank, let's just head over to the British Tier 10 Heavies, and we put up, actually, you know, the M103 is fine because it's got Tier 10 levels of pen. I mean, look at the Super Conk's armor against standard. It's incredibly good. And even loading premium shells, because the Super Conk's upper plate, as we can see here, is actually spaced, it means that you cannot pen the Super Conk's upper plate, even with the highest of penning premium shells. Also, the turret cheeks are all spaced, so really the only spots you can pen are right in between the gun mantlet. The Super Conk is just a really well-armored vehicle, and it's one that I definitely would not mess with hull down. The vehicle is super enjoyable to drive, and it's definitely going to be a comp tank, in my opinion, next update. So, yeah, it's just a great vehicle. Side-scraping capabilities as well are very solid because Wargaming buffed the side armor. So, I would highly recommend, when it comes to the Super Conk, keep an eye on its price tag. Right now, it's 17,500 gold, but it's going down in price tag fast. Next change, it's going to be going down 1,500, so it'll be 13,000 gold at the cheapest if it stays in stores. 13,000 gold for a Super Conk is an absolute steal. So I would recommend, if you're planning on getting the vehicle, keep an eye out for when it gets low. I would say when it gets down to the last 500 vehicles, snatch it up, because if you don't, it's probably going to sell out. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and let me know what you guys think about the auction tanks in the comments. Hopefully this helped you out, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.